am your host, Christene Marie, and happy Monday. It is Monday, February 9th. I think it's the 40th day of the year. And man, y'all, we've got our work cut out for us. I almost feel a little bit just sober, I suppose, just recognizing how fast the time goes, how fast the year goes. And it's exciting, it's exciting how much potential we have to live every day with so much meaning and live our lives to make an impact. One of my dearest friends is going through an existential crisis, so to say, where they're just really, really wanting to know why. Why are we here? Why do we exist? What's the point? And it's exciting because with that question, man, there's a whole myriad of answers that actually make me feel excited, even if it's not the one and it's not the ultimate why. Y'all, to love, to serve, to care for others, to make change, to make generational change that literally outlives us, to create something beautiful with our lives. There's so many beautiful whys, even if they may not be the ultimate one, but it's exciting when we realize that, there's so many compelling whys for our existence, for you and I showing up, even here tonight. Why are we here tonight? To grow, to cultivate ourselves, to be in community, to enjoy each other, to connect. There's, again, so many compelling whys. And so for whatever why brings you here, I'm so glad you're here. Brian, it's good to see you. I'm excited, y'all. There's been a number of conversations over the last couple of weeks that have been super meaningful to me. And it feels truly like an honor that we get to exist here tonight and share a conversation together. So thank you for that. Tonight we're diving into how do you know you're growing? And Brian, I just see your question here. What's something you've always wanted to try but haven't had the chance yet? That's such a good question. I'm going to think about that. I'd love to know from your perspective, what's something you've always wanted to try and haven't had the chance yet? And frankly, I think that this question even is perhaps tied to it. I think that actually it has a lot to do with it to begin with. If we're on the pathway to growth, what does it look like? What are the hallmarks of growth? And how do we know we're actually growing to begin with? Nantwort World, good to see you. Kookie, kindness is the highest level of wisdom. Oh, that is beautiful. I love that comment. Beautiful. Kindness is the highest level of wisdom. Medi, good to see you. I'm just outside of Washington, D.C. And so that's where I hail. Avery, thanks for joining. Who gives? Thank you. Thanks for joining, Mike. Thank you for coming on here. Y'all, tonight we are talking about how do we know when we're growing? And this is such an important question because, y'all, there are so many things that steal our attention. There's so much in the external world. Even tonight we were having a conversation. I'm wrapping up the last night of the Knowing Intensive. And I was speaking with a couple, and effectively, there's just so much vying for our external focus, our external attention to all the things to do. And there's so much to do. How do you even know the prioritization? What's the hierarchy of all of our demanding task lists, to-do lists? Are we ever done to begin with? And it can really just feel overwhelming to the point where you almost freeze. And so to this question of, well, how do I even know if I'm growing in the first place? I just feel like I'm knocking off a to-do list and it's incessant and it's never ending. And so even as I say that, honestly, I'm thinking about mothers who just constantly have one thing after another of things to do. I'm thinking of entrepreneurs where the list is never done. I'm thinking of so many folks who the way that they live is driven by external demand. They're not actually really truly in the driver's seat of their life. It's constantly reactive and acting in response to the demands of others, the crisis of others. And so if we are not intentional to ask this question, well, how do I know I'm even growing to begin with? That's our responsibility. Other people so often are not going to be asking us to better ourselves and to become a better version and to grow and level up in life. So if we want to really take radical responsibility for our own cultivation and our own health and growth, it's not going to be coming from what we do for other people. It's not going to be in listening and paying attention to everybody else. Usually it requires us actually going inward and us actually creating a space on a regular basis. It could be daily, weekly, but a somewhat consistent, regular time that we actually sit and do an audit of our lives, of actually considering, am I really in alignment with who I want to be in the first place? Am I actually, we talked about this a couple nights ago, am I actually on the right track? Am I moving towards this future vision of okay, Raheem, what are you on your track? JK from PA, Mike, are we actually moving towards this ideal that we have for ourselves? Not simply being beholden and kowtowing to the requests of others at the drop of a hat. So this question, how do I know that I'm growing? There's a couple of things that stood out to me in preparation for this. One, discomfort. How often are you and I actually going into the arena and feeling physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually uncomfortable with what we're engaging with? Whether it's a question, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a study, are we studying something that's really engaging our mind and it's really uncomfortable? So what's the level of discomfort you're experiencing in your life right now? And y'all, if everything in our life is pretty easy peasy, that might mean that we've gotten to kind of a stagnant point. Maybe we've actually come to a place where we're just kind of existing and we're not actually leveling up. And there are seasons for existing. There are seasons for almost just like the calm after the crazy and the chaos. And so there's seasons for being stagnant. But am I stagnant with intention? And am I being stagnant on purpose? Or am I being stagnant out of kind of a lackadaisical, just not really paying attention, and I kind of am falling into stagnation rather than choosing it with intention? Because I would say for most of us who really do want to grow and see change in the world, who are on a mission, who know with clarity, this is who I want to be, well, then leveling up is necessary. I was thinking about this the other day. The degree to which we dream, the strength and potency and grandeur of our dream forces us to level up to match it. But man, if we're dreaming small, then we don't really actually have to change too much. So my question for you is maybe even take a step back of, are you even dreaming? Are you wanting something big for your life? If we're not clear on where we're going and what we even want to begin with, it's going to be awfully hard to level up to any level of analysis because it's all vague in terms of where we're going. This is one of my favorite quotes by Michelangelo. It's on the background of my phone. The greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that it is too low and we reach it. And I just, man, that is so inspiring to me. Am I actually dreaming big enough? Am I actually reaching high enough? Where is my aim? And so with that, I am going to just jump here in the chat and just say hey to everybody. Jason, thank you so much for joining. No, I would not. Liam, Ben, hello. Thank you for joining. 𝐤𝐲𝐞, thanks for hopping on here. Mode Medi, thank you. Curious, hello. Saye, thanks for joining. Raham, I have not. I actually need to go take a look at that. I'm going to make a note. Thank you for saying that. JK, Mike, you are growing when little things don't bother you. Dude, that is such a good call out. I'm writing that one down. When you're not easily bothered. Tell me, Mike, have you read the book Letting Go by David Hawkins? I love this book. It talks about effectively, it's a little bit like that, having the ability to just let go of things. And I think that that's such a good sign of growth. And frankly, it allows us, as if we think of leveling up, the more that the little things get in our way, it's like they actually add a weight to us. Every little thing, every little bit of unforgiveness, every little bit of anger or vengeance that we harbor, it all acts as weights. It's like rocks in our backpack, and we're trying to level up and get to the next level. We're climbing this mountain to this degree that we want to make an impact in the world, yet we've got all these rocks in our backpack. And so with every bit of letting go and shedding the things that have bothered us, the things that have been frustrating, even to your point, in real time, the little thing that could bother me and become a rock to be put in my backpack, man, it's okay. I've let it go. I'm so glad you said that. That is so, so meaningful. Alio Maral, hello. Amir, thanks for joining. Fusion, no, I am live. Faith through works. Interesting. Luke, thanks for joining. Oliver, thanks for coming on here. Helping others is a sign of growth. I love that. Honestly, it really, really does. It really positions you and I when we are at a point. Oh, this is interesting. Tell me what you think about this. When we're at a point of growth, it's almost like the natural outpouring of our presence in other people's lives is that they'll be challenged. David Goggins said this, and I really, really like this sentiment. Granted, it's rough, so it probably needs to be rounded out a little bit. He said, I'd rather have my presence cause somebody to take action rather than just have everybody like me. So effectively, just my presence, the way I live, forces people to look in the mirror. You know, it's almost like a demarcation. And actually, I wrote that down. That's the second one. So discomfort. How do I know I'm growing? One, I'm being active in the pursuit of discomfort. I constantly have something in my life that's just making me feel a little bit uncomfortable. And I'm leaning into the moments of discomfort. Number two is demarcation. Like what David Goggins was talking about, like what you were saying in terms of helping others. Although helping others may not always be what it sounds like at first, maybe this demarcation is that I am growing to the point that I am willing to walk away from that which is unhealthy for me. I am willing to say no. I'm willing to say yes with intention so that every moment of my life matters. Every moment of my life is spent with, man, y'all, intention. So I looked up this word intention and I really dove into the root, the epistemology of it. And when you look into it, it actually has so much more than just like the mental purpose. It's like our mind, our soul, our body, every part of us is all literally in alignment towards a purpose, towards a vision. Every part of us is like effectively what's activated towards a certain goal, towards an intent. That is what that word means, to be intentional. And so now if I'm willing and brave enough to demarcate, you know, I was just talking on the Foundation First Marketing Show about a strong brand demarcates. And y'all, I'm sitting at my parents' house right now. I was sitting right outside on that little porch 4 years ago when I realized if I want to be authentic, if I want to really show up as I am, I have to be willing to have people not like me. And that was something that, gosh, for a grade A+ people pleaser, that was a big thing to realize. Am I willing, and this is the question, for a sign of how do I know I'm growing? I have people who don't like me. I get really mean comments on here on a very regular basis. Someone said something a couple weeks ago where it felt like a knife to the heart. Honestly, it really did, because it touched on one of my greatest insecurities. And so that to me, it's like, okay, I'm growing. I'm putting myself in these uncomfortable places and I'm demarcating. People don't like me. I'm showing up in a way that's forcing people to kind of make a choice, to have a response. That's the thing that's so cool, is when we're living in such a way that it causes a response from other people, whether they feel inspired or whether they want to get on board and support your mission, or they're like, man, I'm having a response because you really did help me and you really made an impact. Y'all, our presence should usher a response from other people. It should elicit a response, because when we come in, and it's not that we're coming in bold and brash, but we're coming in with a presence. And so then the question is, what does your presence bring? Does it bring peace? Do we change the atmosphere by way of bringing peace? Do we change the atmosphere by way of bringing hope or inspiration, or simply by the way we live? We're an example, and calling other people higher to level up in their own lives. So demarcation is another one. Before I get to the other things I wrote down, Brian, scuba diving, it's something that I'd like to try. I love that you said so. Brian C. I love Brian. He's on most nights. Thank you for being my friend. Brian says, what's something you have always wanted to try but haven't had the chance yet? So I would love for everybody to answer this question. I think it's such a fun one. Brian said scuba diving. Brian, yes. I actually had scuba diving lessons picked out last year, and I didn't get to do it. And then another thing that I want to try is pottery, but like actually spinning, like doing the wheel. So I've wanted to do both of those things. So I'd love to hear for you guys in the chat, what's one thing you've always wanted to do, but never gotten a chance to? I'm just looking here at the chat. GJ, I don't know. When did I say I'm the example? I don't remember saying that, but maybe I did. Willie Mills, no, I am not. I'm not doing that. But I really love the concept of each one of us. Frankly, just being able to be in community with each other. Glenn, Ernest, base jumping. Ooh, honestly, that sounds really cool. I had wanted to do bungee jumping at one point, but then I saw somebody go bungee jumping, and it was terrifying watching it. And it was also like they go down so far and then they get jerked back up. And I was like, I feel like that's a disaster waiting to happen. So that makes me scared. Okay. All right. A Pearson, thank you. Thank you for joining. I've always wanted to ride motorcycles. Guy that comments. Okay. So I have my motorcycle license, and the class was really, really good. They did a 3-day class at a community college, and I think it was maybe it was like $250, but I think that they give you a motorcycle, they give you the helmet, they give you everything, and you do 1.5 days of like in-class training. I think you even take a test, and then they put you on the bike, and for the next, 24 hours, you're riding the bike. I loved it. I think you absolutely should do it. It's so much fun. And I will say, I rented a bike in, where was I? Belize. And that was a really fun place to ride because everyone's riding motorcycles, and it just felt really, really safe. And it's like in the jungle. So it was really, really fun. Anthony, my thing is fly in a squirrel suit. Oh my gosh. Wow, DJ, I don't know what's going on for you, but it sounds like you're having a bad night. And I'm really sorry. It sounds like, maybe you're not doing so well. Jason Bourne, I like that name. Yeah, stay safe with the crazy adventures. Thank you. All right, so I'm just scrolling back up to take a look at some of the chats above. And then we're going to keep going into how do I know how do I know? How do we know we're growing? I was getting so engrossed in the chats. Guy that comments, people don't like to hear the truth. Dude, isn't that a word? I'm actually really interested to hear y'all's thoughts. If you guys don't mind responding to this, I'd be really, really curious. What do you do in the environments? And here's the thing, there's so much nuance here for context that this is a hard question to answer generally. What is your approach when people don't like to hear the truth? What is your natural approach to that? I think there's such a difference, but I'm just scrolling down. Yeah, I'm really, really curious. How do you guys engage with people who don't like to hear the truth? And to what degrees of separation, right? So like if you're with a spouse who doesn't like to hear the truth, well, that's very different than a coworker who doesn't like to hear the truth. There's such a degree of separation from your coworker versus your spouse where you're like, I have to do life together. I've got to figure this out. Andrew, thank you. Thanks for joining. I have no way to just speak through your problems, apparently. So are you saying, I'm assuming you would say that it would be like just being open about what you're struggling with, and then you're kind of sharing that, and that's actually the manner in which you're speaking kind of the truth. What is truth? Ooh. It starts right now. What a good question. So, and frankly, that's one that I think each one of us needs to take accountability to answer for our own self. What is truth to you? One thing I will say, though, is that it is incredibly dangerous when we start assigning my experience as what is true, because everyone is coming from such radically different experiences that it is impossible for all of the context, all of the backstory, all of the data that you have in your own life for me to come in and say what's true about you and what you're experiencing. That's very different than my experiences. I experienced this environment, this circumstance in one way, and you experienced it very, very differently. But if I come in and say that's the truth, is that you said this and you said it this way and this is what you meant, it's so dangerous, because by me saying and deeming my experience as truth, I'm immediately separating myself from you, and therefore I am no longer open to what context you might have. Y'all, some people say things out of 20 years of trauma. Some people say things out of 20 years of, 20 years ago I was sexually abused or whatever it is. There's so much context. And so there's a big difference between capital T truth, such as God, versus my experience in this moment, where it actually feels very real for me. And it is very real for me because of my 20 years of pent up anger or pent up experience or pent up unprocessed trauma. So it is very real for me and it is my experience. But man, it toes a very, very dangerous line if I start claiming my experience as the truth. And we have to be really careful that the capital T truth belongs in very sacred places. Aventus says, what do you do for work? I have a branding and marketing business, and then also I do marketing for trades, and then my family has a 100-year-old painting business. So DJ, you really want to talk about this? I think so. I'm so against it. And I also know that, again, there's some nuance there. But there's so much nuance there that frankly, I don't, this isn't the topic for the show tonight. So, and it seems like you're asking this in kind of an aggressive way. And so frankly, when somebody, so this is a nuance here that I actually think is important when we're talking about the truth. AJ says the truth will set us free. Y'all, if we're experiencing somebody and they're coming in wanting black and white, it's going to be so incredibly hard to have a meaningful, they're not looking for a conversation. They're looking for a black and white answer. And that's where there are those capital T truths, such as God. And DJ, I think that what you're asking is a black and white. Yet there's also some gray there when it's the baby is dead, that like the baby's dead inside of you. And so there's some gray there in that way. And so my sister, she had a miscarriage, and it was just a very, wait, we're going here. But you know what? I got to tell you, DJ, it actually doesn't feel wise for me to have this conversation with you, because I'm not sensing a desire for discussion. I'm sensing that there's almost coming from a place of, it doesn't feel peaceful. Y'all, this is something that's really interesting. When we're trying to engage with other people, if there's not an atmosphere of peace, when there's not an atmosphere of even the presence of God in that space, y'all get the hell out of Dodge. Like, be so careful. And that's something I've experienced a lot, where it's like, if I want to speak the truth, am I coming from a place of love or fear? And is that person in a place of love or fear? Because if they're in a place of fear and we're not both coming from a place of love, the truth is going to be so much more, it's going to be so harmful and do more to separate us. The truth is supposed to bind us when it's coming from a place of love. So to this question of how do I know that I'm growing, to kind of get back on the point, DJ, I already answered you. I said, I agree with you. I don't think that that's what God wants. So that's your answer. I hope you're happy. And I already said God's truth. So if you want to keep chatting, feel free to hit me up on Facebook. We can dive into this a little bit deeper. Yeah, I agree. It's kind of messing up the vibe. So I'm just going to, DJ, feel free to reach out to me. I actually really would be very open to having a conversation. But going back to the topic at hand. So how do we know that we're growing? Are we leaning into discomfort? Are we being brave enough to put ourselves in an environment where we are constantly, and this is where each intelligence, so we talk about this on the show a lot. The goal is that every part of us, the intellectual part, the spiritual part, the emotional part, the physical part. Every part of us, we are actively cultivating and we're actively growing and we're seeking change in each one of these areas. And so when we talk about, am I experiencing discomfort? It could be in any one of those areas. It could be in the cultivation of any one of those intelligences. And so discomfort for me for a number of years was experiencing emotional discomfort of, who am I? Who did God make me to be? Why am I here? Going inward and asking myself those questions. Most recently, I've actually been really experiencing spiritual discomfort and going toe to toe, where sometimes I experienced this 11 years ago when my brother-in-law was killed. I experienced spiritual discomfort and being like, God, what the, insert your own desired word. What the heck? How is this? How can you let this happen? And I really had to have it out with God. There's this biblical narrative and story of this man fighting with God for all night long. He's fighting with God and he's not letting God go until he gets his answer. And sometimes we need to do that. We need to actually go toe to toe and be like, I will not relent until I get the answer because this is too painful. And so I've had to do that in my own life. And that is spiritual discomfort, is literally going and fighting it out and battling it out. And then emotionally going inward and looking in the mirror and sitting in the discomfort of what I see and being like, oh my gosh, I hate that I'm this way, that I've been conditioned or whatever, for whatever reason. I hate that this is the way that it is. And so sitting in the discomfort, even physical discomfort, I trained for a marathon. That was the worst. I'd never do that. That's awful. And it forced me to learn endurance in a way that I otherwise never would have. So y'all, that's my number one question for you, is where are you experiencing discomfort? In what area in your life? How do you need to grow? How do you want to change? And then the second one is demarcation, which we were talking about. And frankly, from the looks of the chat, it looks like we're demarcating. That's what this should do. We should be bringing a presence into a room, into a digital space that demarcates. DJ demarcated. DJ, good for you. You've got a brand, And that's the thing. The goal is that, man, ideally we're leading with love, so that in bringing disruption, it's bringing disruption for an outcome of unity, not bringing disruption and blowing up what's working so well and blowing up the piece, but actually coming in for the purpose of the goal. Man, y'all, but here's the thing. I'm going to go religious for a second because I actually really like this story. Jesus came in and blew up religion. He blew up what all had always been this tight little black and white box and this black and white little narrative of this is what tradition is. And he's like, no, it's not about religion. It's about relationship. And he went and ate and drank with the sinners. And I put that in air quotes for those listening. He did not go and entrust himself to the religious people because he saw their hearts. And so when we are looking at people from the outside, and because they wear a thing around their neck, meaning they're a father or a priest or whatever, God's looking at their heart. And that's what we need to be looking at for ourselves. We need to be doing an honest assessment of our own hearts at all times. And sometimes those guys wearing the clergy neckline, they're great. Thank God for people who, like Mother Teresa, thank God for Mother Teresa. She's actually like a hero of mine. How can we be more people who bring our presence into a space that bring about disruption powered and backed in love rather than fear, rather than just wanting to be right? And y'all, that's the question. Do we just want to be right, or do we want to know what is God's way? What's the best way? Where am I wrong? Do we want to know the truth? And I'm talking about capital T truth. So awareness, that's the number 3. That's number 3. How do I know I'm growing? Am I aware? Y'all, aware is the first part of emotionally intelligent, is to be aware, and then to understand, and then to be able to express one's own emotions. That's the first half of emotional intelligence. The other half is the ability to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and with empathy. And so when you look at that whole big picture of emotional intelligence, the number one feature and core tenet is to be aware. Are we aware? Are we listening? And, even in these moments of talking with you all, it's like I want to constantly have a thumb on the pulse of, God, what do you want? Am I in alignment with my ideal? Am I heading in the right direction? And it's just constantly, like literally keeping your thumb on the pulse, having an idea of, am I in alignment right now? Am I out of alignment? And y'all, just 2 hours ago, I was sitting at a table with these two wonderful humans, moving them through a knowing intensive. It's a husband and wife, and and I had to literally in the moment be like, is this the right time to say this? Is this the right thing to say at all? And what question do I ask? And really being led. So this concept of being aware, it's being aware of all that's going on within and all that's going on without. So it's a really, really tricky place, which actually leads to the next point, which is effectively having an open channel, like having an open channel in the spirit to God's voice. God, what's going on? You can, guys, getting that little whisper where we're like, I don't know how I knew that. So often that's the voice of God where it's like, hey, by the way, and it's like, dude, I don't know how I know that, but I do. And I've got this superpower that I get to go and like bless other people or make that business decision. And somehow I knew. That's the open channel. So it's being aware, but then also having open channels to not just, and here's the thing, it's not just internally with God, but also who are we listening to on these devices and also in our peer group? Do we actually have people who are going to challenge us? Like, honestly, I really appreciate, DJ, like, I appreciate you challenging me, like I wanted to just take a pause and take a moment. But y'all, we need challenge. We need people. Again, the goal is, okay, they're coming from a place of peace, or is it rooted in fear? But this is really, really important that we actually do intentionally go into the arena with people who are going to challenge us. We're going to really hold up the mirror for us and be like, hey, by the way, what's going on here? And so, and DJ, I saw that your comment pop up right now. Language is very important here. I completely agree. I don't know what you said previous, and I'll get to it in a few minutes, but language is very, very important. And so when we're engaging with other people, what's the definition of the words? What do you really mean by that? And that was actually something even tonight as we were talking, okay, when you say, what was the word? The gentleman used the word cooperative to define himself. And so I was like, what's your definition of that word? Because what I understand cooperative to be versus what you do, very, very, very different. And so then if you and I are engaging and going at it with two completely different perspectives, it's going to be impossible for us to be able to move forward in a direction that really brings about resolution. Let me just take a quick note, quick moment to jump into the chat. I'm just looking here at some of these. DJ says, my intentions are asking questions that you cannot answer. Oh my. Evan says, I had narcissistic parents. Dude, that's really, really hard. I cannot imagine growing up with that. I'm so sorry. Derek from Ireland. Hello. Oh, I love Ireland. Is stopping someone from committing? Wow. Yeah, you're really asking me all these hard questions. DJ, send me you know what? Better yet, I actually have a form on my website for you to ask these questions because I'm good to answer them, but frankly, it is disruptive in some sense to kind of keep moving away and answer all these questions that aren't in alignment with the show. I'm going to put this here in the chat. The question that he asked was, is it wrong to stop somebody from committing suicide? That's clearly a very heavy question, but go ahead and put that in. I just dropped a link to, it's a link to a form where you can put in your questions. Okay. I'm just going down to this. Oh, Steve, hello from England. I love London. All right. I'm just jumping down. Okay. AJ, I completely agree. I actually was looking at doing creating a code that would allow for like moving all the spam. Oh my gosh. Maybe at some point, but I like being able to see, but also, yeah, to your point, it does just, I'm not good at coming back. So, okay. So next, how do we know that we're growing? Discomfort. Demarcating. Our presence really causes it causes a reaction. It causes a response. Aware. Are we listening? Are we actually quiet enough, or are we constantly? I think of it as this way. computer processing requires an input to then process and then feeds the output. Y'all, every single one of us are getting countless inputs every single day, especially from this thing. So the question is, are we allowing the space and time to process all of our inputs? Because it's like a broken computer where the outputs start getting jammed and they start being incoherent and they're inconsistent and you're like, what's going on? Well, the overflow of the input is too overwhelming to then be able to process. So you need to actually slow the inputs to allow for proper processing of that information processing system. Otherwise, the outputs are going to effectively break. And DJ, I just saw your comment. None of my questions are in bad faith. Take it for what it is. Thank you. I actually love that you said that. And you know, I missed your comment where you were like, I'm just asking you hard questions. So fair. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up because I do actually need to go to bed. I woke up really not feeling well this morning, so I need to go to bed. Y'all, the last thing, how do we know that we're on the right track? Are we in alignment? I love alignment. Alignment has really been something that has been, man, it's really changed my entire life. This concept of every single day taking intentional space and time to bring my beliefs, my behaviors, my mindset, my emotions, every part of me, my physical being into alignment, bringing all these disparate parts into alignment under the hierarchy of my own ideal. Who do I want to be? Where do I want to go? What do I feel called to? Who was I created to be? And then under the superordinate principle of God, who does God say that I am? Because that's the ultimate T. That's the ultimate truth. And so it does not matter how I'm feeling. It doesn't matter what the world is saying. It does not matter what has happened. What matters is the capital T truth. And that capital T truth is at the very top of the hierarchical order, under which I then bring everything in my life into submission. And so how do I know that I'm growing? I am operating in that alignment. And if I'm moving out of alignment, then it's going to be impossible for me to grow on the trajectory. Here's the other thing. We can grow out of alignment. We can grow. It's like a rocket that once it takes off, if it's just a little bit, 5 degrees off, 2 degrees off, it's going to eventually go up and then veer way off. So we need to maintain alignment as we grow. Otherwise, we're going to grow like an offshoot, a wrong branch heading in the wrong direction, a wrong rocket going in the wrong direction. So us operating in alignment is fundamentally important. And I created verticalalignment.com is a domain that my friend gave me for my birthday. And then I created 21 days of vertical alignments, which is just my own process every morning it follows ALIGN, the acronym ALIGN. A, awakening our physical bodies. L, listening, because we were talking about listening, the importance of having that space. Listening to our souls, listening to our emotions. What's going on? How am I doing? Is there anything from yesterday that I'm bringing into today? Y'all, we are logic and emotion. And so if we're shutting down access to 50% of us, there's no wonder we're going to have disparate outputs, because our information processing system is not working well. And so then it's I, which is illuminate. And this is illuminate the truth. This is remembering the superordinate principle. What does God have to say? Because even when I bring my physical body online and activate it, and I am aware of how I'm feeling, what's my intellect saying? What are my thoughts right now? All of that needs to be coming under submission. So that's illuminating the truth. And then G is grow. That's where I ask you questions every single day to move through. It's 3 weeks of just moving through. How does the past show up in the present? And what's your potential? What is possible? And we don't take a lot of time very often to ask those questions or analyze or do that work. So this is 21 days to do that. So the last one is navigate. So how do we take whatever we learned this morning and apply it throughout the day? So with that, I would love to invite you to join me in that if you'd like. Otherwise, I will be live tomorrow morning. I will not be going live at 9 because I have a 9 a.m. meeting. I'll be going live at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. We move through A Course in Miracles and we just read through the daily lesson. So with that, thank you all so much for joining. I'm just going to check in. Brian, good night. Thank you for coming on here. Say Aspen. Yes, I love it. DJ, oh man, asking another hard question. Fill out the form. I would love for you to ask all these questions in there. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for coming on here tonight and joining me. It's been an eventful evening with you. In the meantime, thank you. Thank you for joining. And DJ, I appreciate your questions. It's been interesting tonight. So have a wonderful evening, y'all. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Bye.